Today, I will talk about JavaScript, the programming language that powers the web. And I will do an example where it's like YouTube, and we're going to have some thumbnails, and we're going to click. And as soon as we click, the video that's playing will change to the one we clicked. And I'm going to leverage jsfiddle.net, this environment here. And if you haven't used it, if you can click run in the top left, top right, sorry, top left. And then in the bottom right, you will see the result. The code for HTML is in the HTML panel, and then for CSS, and then for JavaScript. And there's some settings if you don't like the current layout, click to change it. I also have custom settings to disable HTML tag auto closing and auto closing of brackets. Those are disabled for me. Okay, so in a previous session, I did HTML, which is more about the structure of a document. And then we did CSS, which is making it pretty. And now we're going to do JavaScript. So JavaScript was created so that we can manipulate the document. That is, we can remove things, we can add things, we can change the style and everything in real time as you're interacting with the browser. And that gave way for all the apps you know today, especially social media like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. And all that interactivity, meaning you can click things and something happens. It basically it makes you believe you're using an application in a desktop. You know, back in the days, we would use more of desktop applications that were built on the desktop, like Windows or Mac. And now pretty much a lot of things are done using the browser. So that's why all this stuff came along. So it's trying to mimic all the desktop app behavior. So I'll start off with a video tag here, and I'll give it a source, and I'll close the video. And the source I'm gonna give you me one moment here. I took it from GitHub. I just did a search for videos, and this is on from GitHub. Let me see. I'll paste in a Zoom chat if you want to use that video. So add that to the source. Now it's gonna appear like this. It's kind of weird. So I'm gonna add controls attribute, and it's just too big. So you want to add maybe a width. Let's try 200. Maybe a little bigger, about 400. Make 300. How about that? Because we got limited space here. So anyway, we got a video you can play. Nice. Now let me teach you how you can change this video to another one using JavaScript. So JavaScript, the point is we manipulate the document. So what controls this video if it's playing one video and then it plays another video? Well, that's the attribute src, the source. If I change this to something else, let me take another video here. So I copied another one and I pasted it here and I click run, it changes to another video. I pasted the Zoom chat, by the way, the second link. Okay, that's nice, but I did it manually, right? How can I manipulate this using JavaScript? So that's the point, so that we can start doing, okay, I'm going to have some thumbnails in the bottom here. I'm going to click them. And in the click event, I want something to happen that something is changing the source. Okay. So if I click this, this is another video. Now I'm going to revert back to the other. So in JavaScript, you always start off, you want to, okay, like CSS, where we would specify a selector saying, hey, I want all the elements that are, for example, all the div elements to have the following styles. We want all the following elements that have the class ABC to have the following styles. It's kind of the same thing in JavaScript. You have to tell it, what do you want to manipulate, right? What do you want to target on the page? The document has so many elements. What do you want to change or what do you want to add? But first, we need to know what the element to operate on. So in JavaScript, you usually interface via the document object like this. If you go to the JavaScript panel, just type document. This is what's called an object. So an object is like in the real world, it has attributes. It has behavior like a car can drive, but a car has the attribute of having some color, right? For the paint, has some make, year, and so on. So it's like kind of the similar in programming languages. But suffice it to say, the document object here, you can ask it for something, and that's something. Okay, I want to get an element by something. For example, get an element by its ID attribute, or get some elements by the class name, or get an element by its name attribute, or by the name of the element, so on. So today I'm just gonna teach you by ID to start off. So if you take the video element here, okay, we want to manipulate the video so that I want to change the source here. Okay, so I'm going to add an ID attribute to this video to uniquely identify it. Let's call it the video dash player. And then in the JavaScript tab here, you're going to do dot. So when you have objects in JavaScript, you can think of the dot as something that is written on the right belongs to something on the left. In this case, it's something that will belong to document. In that case, it's a what we call a function, which is a set of instructions. So if you type get element by ID like this, make sure every character is in the correct case. I put get word in lowercase, followed by E uppercase element, followed by with the B uppercase, followed by I with the I uppercase. It's important that the case matters, okay? And this naming convention is called camel case, where the first letter of the first word is lowercase and all the subsequent words are added with just the first letter being capitalized. It's just a naming convention that the JavaScript programming language community uses. You're going to see that a lot. So be careful. When you're doing programming, JavaScript or any other programming language, you want to be careful and read every character to make sure there's no typo. Because one single typo, like I forgot the E here, and everything is going to break. So make sure to read every character. If you're having trouble, you don't know what's going on, start from the beginning, read every character. Anyway, this is what's called a function. So behind the scenes, is going to do some stuff and is going to get you the element by ID. But when we have functions in JavaScript, every time you want to execute the instructions, you must add the parentheses here. This means, okay, for the function get element by ID that belongs to the document object, I want to execute, meaning there's some set of instructions that were written. Whoever wrote this function, it's somewhere in the browser source code. So when I call it, those instructions will be executed. And the instructions are go through the document, and I want to find element whose ID is what I give you. Now, what we give the function is what we call an argument. So here we have to say, okay, what's the ID? Now, the ID is going to be video dash player. But I cannot just say video dash player here like this because it's going to think it's something else in the programming language as later on you're going to learn. So I must add either single or double quotes surrounding video dash player. So this means this is what we call a string. It's a sequence of characters. And if you want to literally mean V and I and B and E and O and so on, you have to have the quotes. Notice how the word document and get element by ID don't have quotes. That's because they have a special meaning. They're not literally showing that word document. They're not literally showing get element by ID. So that's why here we need the quotes because we literally mean this sequence of characters. In any case, when we execute this, it's going to find this element and give to us. Think of it like a hook. You know, it's going to try to grab the element and you have a hook that's attached to it and you can do whatever. Or you can also consider it what we call a reference. It's a reference to the video element. And since you have the video element now, you can actually manipulate it. That is, you can change the attributes. You can change its content if there is text content like paragraphs and so on. In this case, I'm interested in changing the source attribute. And that's actually pretty easy to do. All I have to do is say dot src. Remember, the thing on the right usually belongs to the thing on the left. You can think of it that way when we do this dot thing. So the src attribute of whatever is on the left-hand side. Whatever's on the left-hand side, you can think of it as one thing. When I say document.getElement by ID, that returns, a function returns something to you, gives you back something. You can think of it as one single thing here. Imagine there's like video element here. Okay. Imagine this thing was copied here visually. Visualize it like that. Anyway, so if I do it just like this, I can access actually the value that I typed for this source here. But I don't want to access it. I actually want to change it or attribute a new value. So to do that, we use the equal sign. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to be the new value. For this new value, I'll simply copy the second video that I posted to the Zoom chat. That's for the calculator.mp4. So I'll put it here, but be careful. We have to add what? Quotes surrounding it because it's a string. I keep repeating the same word so you can get it. This is called a string sequence of characters because we want to literally say every single character here, just put it there, literally every single character. It doesn't mean anything else special in the language of JavaScript. Okay, so as soon as click run here, you see that the player changed to the new video. I don't know if you noticed it. Let me remove it and click run. You see, this is the video of Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And then I pasted something in the JavaScript and I click run. Immediately change to a new video here. So what's going on is the browser will process the HTML document and it will show the video of Golden Gate Bridge. And then immediately after, it will run the code of instructions from the JavaScript section here, starting from the top all the way to the bottom. Now you don't see it because it's very fast, but it's actually there's the Golden Gate Bridge video, and then immediately after, the source attribute is changed to the calculator.mp4, which is the Visual Studio Code video, I think, yeah, in the browser. Okay, so that's what's happening here. Now you're gonna see a lot of people will add space before and after the equal sign, and that's optional, but that's what we usually do because we think it looks nicer for the eye for us humans to see. Okay, so you're gonna see that a lot. And as I said before, you can use either single or double quote. It doesn't matter in this context. That's totally fine, same outcome. Do whatever you please. I usually just do single quotes because it's easier. It's just I don't have to press shift key every time I press the quote key in the keyboard. Okay, how is everybody doing so far? Is it too much, too fast? Let me know if you have any trouble, okay? You get stuck. All right. So thank you. Let's keep going here. So I taught you how you can change the attributes. You could also change the style. For example, I didn't style anything here. Maybe I could go in CSS and do some style changes. Maybe for some reason, I want to add to the video player some border of 5 pixels solid red. How about that? Let's see what happens. So I got the red border, right? And that's CSS. I can also do this with JavaScript. Let me show you how. Let me remove the CSS here. So in JavaScript here, we first have to get the element we want to manipulate. In this case, is document or get a element by ID video player. That's one way of getting it. Now there's different ways, right? But that's the easiest way right now. So we can do the same thing. Document, hey document, please dot get element by its ID. Get element by ID. Okay, what's the ID? Provide me the argument within the parentheses. Okay, it's a string and the ID is video dash player. Now we got the element. This returns something, gives me back the reference to the video element so that I can manipulate it. Now I'm going to manipulate what? The style. So I can say dot style. Okay. And then to the style, there's many CSS properties. So I can say dot background color. Now you notice here, I don't put dash color. Actually, I want to do border, right? Sorry about that. Let's do border. And then I want to reassign it. So equal sign and the new value. Now new value here can be in quotes. 5 pixels, solid red, semicolon. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is the semicolon. Uh, it's optional in JavaScript when you finish a statement in the programming language to put a semicolon saying, hey, I finished this. You know, just like CSS, every time you have a property name, colon, value, semicolon to finish it off. You can also do that with JavaScript, but it's optional. Now, I always put it, and the reason is I don't want to get into some weird bug that might happen later on because sometimes the previous line might affect the next line. So that's why you want to always add the semicolon. So to prevent any conflict, if you're not aware of what's going on in the source code, that's why some people like to always add. But you don't have to, it's optional, okay? So you're gonna see that a lot. In any case, I just leave it here so you can see we added it. Now, let me remove the code just briefly so you can see if I click run, there's no border, right? Now, if I put back the code here, click run, now there's a red border surrounding it. So like I said, what happened was the HTML code was processed by the browser and then rendered, and then the JavaScript code immediately after is loaded and executes statements from the top to the bottom. First, it does the change of the source. So we see this Visual Studio Code video, and then after that, it goes, okay, for the style of the video player, we want the border to be 5px solid red. Okay. Now, if you want to change any CSS property through JavaScript, you have to go through this dot style attribute here. Okay. So you can think of this, it's an object. You can think of everything is an object thing. That's the keyword you're going to hear a lot. Okay. Now, object has attributes. One of the attributes here being the border. And you can do background color, although I don't think you're going to see anything here. I don't know if it's, there you go. You can see briefly in the beginning, right? Maybe you can style other properties that are more relevant. Anyway, if I revert back to border, as I said, we usually add space after the equal sign and before, just for styling, like that. Okay, so I taught you how to manipulate the source. Oh, and manipulate the CSS. Now for the CSS, you've noticed when I put background color here that I didn't use background dash color. That's because in JavaScript, we always use the camel case naming convention. Like I said in the beginning, if you have multiple words, the first word is all lowercase. And if you have following words, they all follow with the first letter capitalized. There's no dash to separate the words. Okay, reverting back to border. Now I want to add the thumbnail so we can click and see what happens as we click the thing. So let me just go to this website, pick some photos. I pasted the Zoom chat. It's an easier website to generate images. Since I don't have a thumbnail for the video, I'd probably go to the video, take a screenshot or something. I don't have time for that. So I'm just gonna take a random image and use. So if you use this URL here, and put the width slash height, it gives you a random image. And what I want to do is take an image of 200 by 112. So I'm gonna go to a new tab and paste like that. I pasted the Zoom chat as well. Basically, it's pixum.photo slash 200. That's the width slash 112. That's the height. Press enter. And it generates a random image. So I can copy this link from the address bar, go back to JS Fiddle, and let me add an image here to the bottom. Image source that, and it's self-closing. So it's like that. I want to make, maybe I want to add the width here. Let's see if it's 200. I want to have multiple images, so we don't have much space here. So I'm gonna decrease the size just for the sake of the space constraint here, but you could have whatever you want. Now what's going on here? The thing is, it doesn't let me, something's weird going on in my editor. Let's see. 100. I'll keep it really small like that. And then I want to add two more. Let me take one more here. I'll click the same link from the Zoom. So image, source. This is the other one. The width is 100. Basically, I just click the Zoom chat link again, and I grabbed another image. And I'll click it again to grab another image. So we can have different ones. And here's the other one with 100. Nice. Let's make it better because CSS. Let's make a div here. I'll add a class, image list, and then all of these images will be under that. So add some indentation, meaning some space to the left, and don't forget to close the div. Anyway, what I just did here was create a div of the class image dash list. So I put all the images inside like that. And don't forget to close the div. So that way I can group them together like that. So it's nice. Since the div is display block, it will occupy its own line instead of staying next to the video thing. Okay, that looks nice so far. Uh, we didn't even have to do anything more, but if you want to do fancier stuff, feel free to do so. I'll keep it simple like that. So what I want to do right now is suppose that when I click the second video, I want this Visual Studio Code video to appear. Now, before I do that, let me show you how you can ignore code in this source code here. So if you put a slash slash in the beginning of the line, everything after the slash on the same line will be ignored by the computer. So if I put slash slash in the second line as well, that will be ignored. So in effect, that will go back to its original form without the source being changed and without the border being changed. Okay, so let me leave that commented out for now. Now let's talk about events. So I want to be able to click the second image and change this video to the Visual Studio Code video. Now this is the Golden Gate Bridge video. That I am assuming that's the first one, and the middle one will be the VS Code video, and then the third one will be another video that I'll give you later. So right now, when I click the image, nothing happens. So what we have to do is listen to events. So in the document, there will be many events, like a click of a button in the mouse, or you press the keyboard, some key, or you hover the mouse over some area, like a box or the image or outside, or something like that. There are so many kind of events, like form submission event, and so on. So we're interested in the click event for the image, the second image. So the easiest way you can do it, go to the element you want to listen for the click, in this case, the second image, add an attribute called onClick, all lowercase, equals sign, double quotes, double quotes. Now, inside that onClick, I have to define the name of a function. Remember, function is a set of instructions. So let's say I want to say change video. That's the name of the function. Now I want, when I click, to call this function. To call means execute the instructions. So I need the parentheses here. Okay. So now this has to be defined in the JavaScript panel. So if I go to the JavaScript, so I have to define that. So we can say change video parentheses, but then I have to proceed with the function keyword that's from the JavaScript language, saying, okay, what follows the function keyword with between the space is a function named change video, and the arguments are listed between the open and closed parentheses. Now I don't have any argument right now, so I'm just going to leave it empty. Now the instructions are defined between the open curly brace and the closing curly brace. And we usually leave the open in this first line, and then we close it in a new line. And we type the statements between them in new lines. You notice I put a space here. It's optional to have a space after the parentheses, but I always like to add. So whenever we open a curly brace, we typically add indentation, meaning at least two spaces on the left-hand side. And then when we reach the closing one, we go back to the vertical level we were before, like here. Okay. Nice. So when I click the image, change video, this function, this set of instructions will be executed. Now it executes from the top to the bottom, and that's the instructions between the curly braces. Now we have to add an instruction here to change the video, right? Let's take this one that we had before and cut and paste inside and remove the slash slash. So this instructions just changes the source to the video of Visual Studio Code. So if I click run and I click the image, you see the video change to Visual Studio Code video. That's because one click, it's calling the function change video. Hey, please change video. So it goes to line 2 here, executes that, and since there's no more statements after that, we reach the end, right? Closing curly brace. So that's it. And then we got to do a similar thing for all the others. But before we do that, how's everybody doing? Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So if I click the first one again, it doesn't change back because we don't have any on click here. So we would have to do the same thing, add on click, and then a function to change the video. Now we could use the same function, but the problem is right now the instruction for the function is just to change the Visual Studio Code video. So if I click run and I click the first one, that would change to Visual Studio Code, which is wrong. So there are different ways we can approach this. We can create what's called an array. It's a list of things in JavaScript and keep all the stuff there. Another way is we could actually just define all the URLs for the video on every image and then read from that attribute as we change it. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate now. So what we do now is the following. So let's take the dash cam one, for example. Here's the search for the dash cam. So I'm going to cut that and I'm going to go to the first image and I'm going to add an attribute. And here after the quotes, I'm going to call it data dash URL. And then this is like a custom attribute in HTML. If you precede the name of the attribute with data dash, whatever, you can create your own attributes that can be given to the element. So the point of this is I want to store the URL of the video in this attribute for the corresponding thumbnail. So I'm going to paste that video of the dash cam of the video of Golden Gate Bridge. So that way, if I need to access, when I click this image, I will have access to the video URL so that I can inject into the source of the video. Let me show you that. So here, when we change the video, what we want to do is get access to the image because that's the one who triggered the event, right? We click this image. So we must have an argument here for the function. And that's usually the event argument. So if I type event here in the JavaScript definition of change video, by the way, this is also called parameter. When you're defining the function, we call it parameter. When you're calling the function, we call it argument being passed into the function. So, but usually it's interchanged with those two terms. So I define the parameter here. So, and then I have to also take care to go to the onClick for the first image and add event here as well. Otherwise it won't work. Okay. So when I do that and I'm inside this function here, I will have access to this event that's an object. And this event object has information about what happened. Was it a click event or any other event? Who did it? Who was the target of this event? So much information there in this object, right? The object has so many attributes or information. And if you want to access the thing that triggered this event, you can say event.target. And this will point to the IMG element. So from the event.target, I can get the data URL. Now, there's different ways of doing that. One way is with the get attribute function. You can say dot get attribute, parentheses, and then you pass data dash URL. Another way is using the data set. You do dot data set dot URL. Basically, every data dash attribute is injected into this data set object. And you can access the URL here by saying dot URL. That's another way. So with this, I can take this and cut that and paste on the right-hand side of the equal sign, which means, okay, I want to go to event.target. Event.target is IMG. Okay, I want to get the data dash URL attribute value. That means it's going to go here, line 4, right? And take this whole value here. Imagine it's being replaced here like that as a string. Imagine that visually. That's what's happening. All right, let me revert back. Let's see if it's working. There you go. I clicked the first one. Yeah, initially there's no video because I put source empty there, if you notice. So I click the first one, it changes to Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. So event.target is the image element. And then I can do .dataset to access all of the data dash attributes. There could be multiple. And out of all of those data dash, I wanted the data dash URL. So you got to say dot URL. So using this, we generalize for any video that you have here, any thumbnail. So if you want to make this work with the second thumbnail, right now it doesn't do anything, right? If I click first one, it changes, but the second and third doesn't work. All I have to do is go to the second image, add the data dash URL attribute there. Now my thing is getting crazy again. Let's go here. I don't know what's going on. There you go. Data dash URL equals, then paste the link for that video. Now that's the calculator.mp4. There you go. Now if I click run in the top left and try to click the second one, let's see. Why didn't it work? Oh, remember, it's not working because of event, right? I must add event here to the onClick. That's why I told you before, put an event there. It's just the way it is. If you don't put it, it won't work. Anyway, I put the event here. Try again. Now it's working. Now let's do the third one. Just do data dash URL. And then you can use the third video. Let me give it the third video. I pasted the Zoom chat. And it's, again, event. Where is it? I have to put on click, change video, parentheses, event, close parentheses, quotes. And now it's going to work. There you go. The video is there. People walking. Okay, how's everybody doing so far? All right. You might have noticed that the video doesn't autoplay, right? That would be nice if it played automatically when I click. I don't want to click, I don't want to go manually click play. So let's do that. So every time I click the image, after I change the video source, I also want to make it play. To make it play, I just have to call a function, right, on the video element. So again, how do we find the video element? Document dot get element by ID. Parentheses, pass the ID in string, right? Quotes, video player. And then I have to not change, I have to call it on the video to play. And to do that is very easy. You just say dot play, and parentheses because play is a function, right? Function is something that does something. It's going to ask the video to play and an optional semicolon there. So if I click the first one, it auto plays. Second one, it auto plays. Third one, it auto plays. Okay, so immediately after changing the source, you call on the video to play. Hey, please play. Call the function, execute the instruction to play the video. You might have noticed there's a lot of dots, right? You're going to see that a lot in JavaScript. Objects and objects have functions and properties. Usually there are different names for the same thing. Like when you have an object, there's a function as a set of instructions. But when you have a function that belongs to an object, you can call that a method, right? You can have something in isolation, but if it belongs to an object, something that describes the object, you call it an attribute. And I'm gonna tell you about variables right now. So you might have noticed that I did the same thing here. I get element by ID, get element by ID. We don't have to do this repeatedly, right? If I already found the video element, why do I have to go and try to find it again, right? That's like a waste of resource. This is a silly example, but if you were doing the real world, it's something that you have to come repeatedly find, always have to find it from scratch over again might be inefficient. So what we can do here is save this reference to what's called a variable so that we can reuse it as many times as we want. So to do that, variables need to have a name. So let's say video player, actually, let's call it video element. How about that? Give it a descriptive name. And then equal sign, you don't need a space, it's for optional. And I'm going to take this statement and put it there. Now, left-hand side is the variable name. Right-hand side is what you want to store. So variable is like a box where you can put something. And if you need it for later, you can take it out and use it. Now, for JavaScript language specifically, the syntax is you precede the variable name with a keyword. It could be var, const, or let. In this case, I just want to assign it once. I don't want to have to change this value later. So I just put it like a constant variable. It doesn't need to be reassigned later. If you don't remember that, just put const there, okay? And then eventually you understand what it means. But that's just the syntax that we have to do to create a variable. Now, once I have the variable, I can use its name whenever I need to access or change something about the video element. So in this case, it would be here, right? So I can replace this with just video element, and it would refer to whatever value I stored in line 2. And then you do the same for line 4. You can just use video element there. The benefit of this is I only find the video element once in line 2, right? Line 2, I find the video, the element whose ID is video player. I store that in the variable called video element. And then whenever I say video element, I just use that reference. That's already found. It's not going to find it again. So I don't waste my time always redoing the same thing. Okay, so before it would do 2 find operations, now just 1. Now you notice how the video element doesn't have quotes? That's what I told you. It has a special meaning. In this case, it's a variable. So once something has a special meaning, it goes without the quotes. But if you want literally to say video, whatever, you have to put the quotes. Like if I wanted to assign the source to video element, literally the characters vid all the way to nt, I would have to add the quotes. Otherwise, if I don't have the quotes, you would be referring to the video element variable that in turn points to the video element, right? So be careful about that. Anyway, I'm going to revert this back to what it was before. So far, so good. You can click here, there. They're still working, right? After I change my code, I must make sure to test it again to make sure my change didn't break anything. So I saw that it's still working as before. I click and it changes the source, and then it plays the video. Okay. Yeah, so you can make the style better by yourself with CSS, but this is like the bare bones. And another thing that I said before, there are different approaches to this problem. The way I did it is using attributes here, but likely in the real world you would do in straight in JavaScript using what's called arrays. Arrays is a list of things, and basically you'll be doing. I'll just give you a preview. I'm not going to write anything, but if you're curious, we will be doing like this: video URLs and make an array with a bracket, square bracket, and then every URL that I have here, we would take that. Let me take and put it in this list of things separated by a comma. Don't forget the quotes, comma, and then finally the third one. And that way everything is defined in the JavaScript code. And all that I have to do is figure out what image maps to what item in the list. So that's the big challenge in this approach. Okay, but that's what it would like with this array here. And if you're curious about arrays, I can open the dev tools here and give you just a brief exposure. Click the console tab, trash can to clear everything, paste that code for video or URLs. I omitted the const just for the sake of using the dev tools. If I do that, and I can access the variable video URLs by saying its name, and that refers to the array, which is like a list of multiple things. And if I want to access the first element, usually the lists have elements, right? Arrays, that's the terminology that we use. An array is a sequence of items, and those items are called elements usually. So if I want to access the first one, I would have to use the bracket notation, square brackets, and put the index of that element, the position. Now the position starts from 0 all the way to the last one. In this case, there's 3, so position 0, 1, and 2. So if position 0 here gives you the first one, which is the dashcam.mp4. If I say video URLs brackets 1, that's the second element. Remember, I start counting from 0, which is calculator.mp4. And finally, video URLs sub 2, the third element, will give you the pedestrians.mp4. Now, if you try to do video URLs sub 3, which doesn't exist, right? We only have 3, and 3 minus 1 is 2, should be the last. It gives you undefined because there's no such fourth element in this list of things. So in this problem, you have to assign like a value to each of these images and try to figure out and get the value from this video URLs. So if I can think off the top of my head, I'd probably give maybe instead of data URL here, you could give data index 0 here to say that, okay, this image corresponds to the 0 element in video URLs. And then you could change this to data index 2. Sorry, not to 1 because we could start counting from 0. And then this other one, we can do data index sub 2 like that. And here in the code, you would change instead of accessing the URL, you would access the index, right? Data in dash index. And then from this index, it's either 0, 1, or 2, you would have to grab the element here mapped to this element. And you can do that if you do bracket notation here, right? Video URLs, brackets, whatever that is. Because this whatever here could be 0, could be 1 or 2. So if you do it that way, let's see if it's working off the bat. Yeah, it's working off the bat. You go. There you go. And second one. I don't know why the third one's not doing it. We would have to debug. Is it because I paste the same thing or no? 0, 1, 2. Let's debug this. I don't know why the third one is not working. So to demonstrate debugging, what I would do is like the very cheap way of debugging, I would go here to the function and I would print out the values for each variable. In this case, for example, I can console.log event.target.dataset.index to verify if I'm really getting number two here. And if I click run, I think there's a, let's see if it appears here when I click. Okay, the first one is zero. I can see the zero here. See in the console? This is called debugging with console logs. Basically, when I say console.log and in parentheses I pass anything, that anything gets printed to the console here. So what I printed is the index of this data index here. So I'm having trouble with the third one. I don't know why it's not working. So that's why I'm clicking the first one to see if it's actually zero, and it's zero. The second one should be one, and I expect the third one to be two, but it's not doing anything when I click. So that means this line is not even getting executed. And that's because I removed the on click, right? If I notice here, there's an on click. I concluded that this line is not executed. Therefore, this function is not getting called, which means I must have done something wrong about the on click for this third one. So I realized, oh, I didn't type the on click. I removed it when I was doing the change of the data URL to data index. So I can do the on click again here and change video event in parentheses. Click run. And I'm going to test it again with the dev tools. Click the third one. Now I see the two there. Now the video is changed, right? So that's how you debug in JavaScript. A very beginner way and cheap way. It's a very powerful way too. I still do it up to this day. But there's also other and more powerful ways using the debugger in the dev tools. In any case, yeah, so we did the data attribute URL version, and then we moved the URLs to JavaScript to an array, which is a list of things, right? Array has many elements, and you can access the element by its index, and the index is always counted from zero. And then we changed to data index so that we can know that what each thumbnail corresponds to in this list of things. And then we learn how to debug in the end because I had removed my own click and I didn't realize that. We did a console log debugging. Let me put a comment here for debugging. Would remove after finding the problem. We usually don't keep the console logs. We remove them after we find out the problem and fix them. But I'll leave here just for reference. Yeah, with that, I conclude this lesson.